I can be a little quirky. I can be a little loud. I can be a little funny. I can be off the cuff. I can say things and put my foot in the mouth. And I think in the beginning, I thought I had to be somebody a little bit more polished. I rose up through the ranks, no college education. So when I was unexpectedly departed from my last company, there was a lot of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't have this piece of paper that everyone else has. And I kind of had to come to terms with the knowledge that I have from all these years of working. That was my education, and just getting comfortable with, I don't have to be like everybody else.
I am Gloria Grace Rand, founder of The Love Method and author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Live, Love, Engage: How to Stop Doubting Yourself and Start Being Yourself. In this podcast, we share practical advice from a spiritual perspective on how to live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically, so you can create a life and business with more impact, influence, and income. Welcome to Live, Love, Engage. Namaste. Are you tired of networking that just feels forced and fake? Well, stay tuned, because my guest and I are going to be talking about how asking the right questions and leading with generosity can actually transform that awkward small talk into powerful connections that actually help your business and soul thrive. But first, I do want to welcome you to Live, Love, Engage, especially if this is your first time joining us. I am Gloria Grace, founder of Align to Shine Academy, and I help women entrepreneurs like you. I'm assuming that you are a woman entrepreneur listening to this, but I help you turn your inner critic into your greatest marketing asset. And joining us in just a moment is Jen Fort, and she is an author, encourager, and creator of Connectworking, a new take on networking that's all about real connection. She shares wisdom for life's milestones with heart, humor, and honesty. And whether you're starting fresh or reaching out, Jen helps you grow your circle and your courage, one meaningful convo, as she says in her bio, at a time. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring her on and welcome you, Jen, officially to Live, Love, Engage.
Well, hello. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am delighted to have you, because I have been a networker now for, well, let's see, I guess well over 15 years since I started my business way back in 2009. And it's been an interesting journey. Some days I like it, some days I don't. I even founded my own networking group in the past couple of years. And so, but I know definitely as an entrepreneur, it's not always easy. So I loved the name of your, or how you phrase this as Connectworking. So I'm wondering, what caused you to come up with that way of referring to networking? Did you have some type of, bad, shall we say, experience? That's the word I'm looking for, that led to that. So I'm curious.
Yeah, so this all came about. I had been working in the corporate world for almost 20 years, and I had what I call an unexpected departure, and which that caused a 180-degree pivot in my career, and it landed me in the role of a career transition coach. So I catch people when they get laid off, help dust them off, figure out where they need to go next, and I send them on their merry way with some tips and tricks and tools. And one thing I learned through those conversations, because networking is such a big part of finding your next job or anything related to business, but every time we talked about networking, it almost looked like the person felt like they were going to go into a root canal. They just got that awkward, cringy kind of feel and look, and they're like, oh, it's the last thing I want to be doing. So through those conversations, I just thought, networking is really just about human connection. And if you stop calling it networking, because it has such so many people have such a negative view of what networking is, so that if it's really about human connection. And yeah, there is a bit of work to be done when you're trying to make those human connections. So I just kind of it just came to me one day. It's like it's connecting, it's working, it's connect working, and that's just kind of how the concept came up.
Well, I love that because you're right. It is all about building connections. And I know one of the networking groups that I had joined years ago. What made it different from some of the other groups that I had been attending in was the fact that they would do masterminds during our luncheons, and where we could talk not only about issues that were going on in our business but even in our personal lives, and that was encouraged, that we could talk about and to really be real. And Women's Prosperity Network, I will tell you that's what the name of the organization was and is, and I'm still a member of it. But I loved that concept. So, but I do also know that, yeah, there were other networking groups that I'd gone to where it was just, people just, oh, here's my business card. And,
Yeah.
and it's like, that's not really, I'd like to maybe get to know you. So, I mentioned in the lead in here is that it's about asking right questions. So, what's maybe like a favorite question that you have that you like to ask people when you are first connecting with someone?
Well, if it is in a especially if it's in a business scenario, I like to ask them, "What's the most interesting thing you've done this week?" And it just gets off of it gets them curious about what's lighting them on fire. Because if you think about it, when are people most open and engaging and wanting to have a conversation? When they're talking about themselves, right? So by you opening up a conversation with something that helps them share something they're passionate about or they're excited about, that just opens the door to a bit of a more genuine conversation. And then you can take and pivot a conversation in any direction, pretty much. But it's really about getting them to talk about themselves.
Well, and actually, I want to kind of go back here because I know I explained part of what the reason why I get turned off at times for networking. Maybe because like I said, I think that's a huge mistake that people make, is thinking they can just walk up and hand you their business card. What are some maybe other key mistakes that people might make when they do go networking that you've seen them make that is going to maybe stop that connection from happening?
It's the intimidation factor of thinking that folks are higher in the food chain than they are. Because when you walk into, whether it's virtually or in person, the automatic assumption that this person is out of touch, out of reach, that they are, of an executive level, and I am only a lowly manager, or that, why it's a little bit of that, it's the cliche term right now, the imposter syndrome. Why would somebody want to talk to me? I'm just a blank. There's nothing interesting about me. So you have to get into a right mindset, I believe, when you start those conversations, because if not, you'll come across as if you've got that loop playing in your head of, well, why would somebody want to spend time talking to me? It comes out in your mannerisms, your eye contact, your body language. So sometimes you just need to kind of pump yourself up a little bit. And I kind of like having people practice casual, small conversations outside of a typical formal networking environment, just to get comfortable with having random conversations with random people.
Yeah, I think that's a really good suggestion for people to be able to do, because it takes that intimidation factor away, and it takes your nervousness away, because especially I know for me, I'm an introvert in some situations, and others I'm not. And I know when I first walk into a room where there's like maybe not many people I know at all, then it's hard to be able to figure out how to approach someone. So what would you say to someone in that situation where they go to a networking or meeting, and especially, and I am talking, we'll probably talk maybe some differences about online versus in person, but I think a lot of people are getting back to doing the in person ones now. So if someone walks into a room and they don't know anybody and they are someone who's a little bit more introverted, what advice would you have for them?
The advice I would give is from even before you attend is if the event starts at 10 o'clock, get there at 9:50. Like be one of the first people to arrive, because if you're there at the event and people are coming into the space, then you're already there and you can more or less act as a quasi greeter. You're not with the folks that are running the event, but you're there and you're helping invite people in, and then you're a helper, because it's sometimes that just kind of takes the perspective away from the connection, and it makes you give them something. You're giving them a warm greeting, you're welcoming them in, and then because they're probably just as nervous as you are, or has a little bit of anxiety, so you can be that safe space for somebody to come in. And even if it is you're just there, hey, welcome, nice to see you today. They might even ask you, where's the registration table? So if you get there a little early, you kind of get the lay of the land, and you can kind of help direct people, just in a helpful way. And then you've established yourself as someone who is helpful, approachable, and you're making it about a thing. It's not about you. It's not about, oh my gosh, what's on my agenda? How many people do I want to meet? Because then you've met just about everybody as they come through the door.
I love that. And I think also it then will sort of prompt someone else to say, well, yeah, thanks for helping me do that. What is it that you do? And then so now it's like you have that opportunity to be able to talk about yourself, as opposed to, feeling like you need to go introduce yourself. So, to ask somebody else about themselves. So I love that. Let's talk a little bit about, because there's so many things I want to talk about here. So I'll try to decide where do I want to go first. But I think since we mentioned, we had to go virtual for so long, where we were networking in online. And what have you found that are maybe some unique either challenges and maybe even benefits for networking online versus networking in person?
Well, I think one of the big benefits is when you're online, you have the ability to share a lot. You can kind of cast a wide net if you are. So I believe that connect working is about the give, more so than the take. So if I am looking to network with people in a certain space, then I present myself online. Maybe it's LinkedIn, or maybe it's on my website, or any project that I'm doing, in a way that I am giving something of value. Whether it is, well, so good example is just the other day, because I work with folks that are trying to find jobs. I just gave a really kind of an offbeat tip for LinkedIn about how to be more visible to recruiters. And so it's just, then that just kind of touches people that are in that mindset. So you can share things. It's easier to share links to articles, TED Talks, podcasts. So it's a great way you don't have to come up with everything. You don't have to come up with a message or a request. It can be, I found this really great podcast or this great article on this topic. You were the first person that came to mind. I wanted to share it with you. Here's a link. And when you approach it from a gracious, here, I'm giving you something that I thought would be helpful to you, or something that made me think of you, the vast majority of the time, the person will reach back and say, hey, thanks, that was really nice. And at least there's that, they've opened the door to having a two-way conversation. And maybe they don't respond. It's not a big deal, but at least that way you are establishing yourself as a person of value, and you're not just sharing, silly little things that are jokes or this or that. Well, it might be on the side. Hey, I know you were planning a trip to Italy. I found this great article on, whatever region of Italy. So it's a way to connect with people on a personal level, but about a thing. And it's not always about the job or the business connection or I want to sell you something. It's providing them something that they're puts a smile on their face.
Yeah, and I think that's so important when you approach this, and this goes for, I think, all aspects of business. If you can approach it with that giving mentality, then things just flow a lot easier, and you are going to be able to make really good connections much more easily because you're the person who is being generous as opposed to when you go to when you go to buy a car and you know that the car salesman's going to go over and try to get the best deal for him and the
Right.
dealership, then they aren't necessarily going to be for you. But if you can come at it from you've got this person's best interest at heart, you want to be generous, then it also, and I think I've even had somebody on the podcast before in the past talks about, I think it starts this, there is sort of this reciprocal thing that goes on in our brains too, because when you're giving, then it's sort of, then the other person wants to then return the favor, as it were, and give to you. And so it can be a good give and take as we go,
Right.
I guess.
And I talk to when I'm talking to the candidates that are looking for jobs these days. I tell them, I always tell them to use, I call it my safari strategy. I'm like, if you ever go on safari, they tell you don't go at the animals straight on because it's going to make them anxious. They're going to run away. So the tactic is always to kind of come around it from the side, something a little less aggressive or assertive. And when you make it about a thing and not about you, it kind of eases that, kind of takes that anxiety down. And um, uh, when I'm talking to folks about, like when they're in job search and they're like, oh, I have to network with so many people. I'm like, don't make it about the job. Just make it about a connection. Hey, it works perfectly in like January, February, because you can blame it on your New Year's resolution. Hey, this year I'm being more intentional about staying in touch with folks. You were at the top of my list, wondering how are you making out? Would love to know, how are the wife and kids? Did you ever take that trip to so and so? And when you make it about that, 9 times out of 10, the person's going to respond back. And then they've opened the door, and conversation will organically come back around to, yeah, I'm doing great. We did take that trip. It was a lot of fun. Hey, what's up with you? And then they're opening the door to furthering the conversation.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm going to say too is that you never know these connections that you make. Yes, of course, if it's, maybe you're in a job search situation or you're, an
Mhm.
entrepreneur and you're looking for maybe a client or you're looking for a new supplier or something like that. But
Mhm.
sometimes connections can really help you personally and in ways that are unexpected. And I may have said this on the podcast before, I'm not sure, or else I was sharing it with a friend of mine, that I made a connection on LinkedIn with a lovely gentleman, and we started, having we met over Zoom a couple times and had some lovely conversations about, what we're each doing in our business. And then the last one we were on, he mentioned that he was releasing a lot of weight, and he had this new program, and so told me about this book called Post Diabetic and recommended it highly. And I bought that book last October, and in let's see, about 5 months, I have totally changed how I eat and have released like almost 50 pounds.
Oh, I need that book.
Post Diabetic. You can find it
I just
online.
wrote it down.
Yeah, it's by two authors. One of them is a doctor. And they also have, when you buy the book, you can even have access to an online course, which was phenomenal. And I mean, frankly, he has, I was on track to probably, I was probably getting to be borderline pre-diabetic, and I didn't want to go there. My
Mhm.
mom had diabetes, my mom had a high blood pressure, and it's like, I've so far been lucky, but, as you get older, I'm in my 60s now, it's like, okay, I need to take better care of myself. So when you come at things with this genuine connection, you never
Right.
know what may come about. So, which leads me to my next question, because I would love to, we all are also, like I say, we've got business owners probably watching the show. If there is someone who is, on a job search, How do you balance being authentic with being strategic and when you are trying to build some new relationships?
Yeah, that's a really good question. What I like to suggest to folks, because if you have an intention, whether it's your job or it's in your business, you know where you want to go and what your outcome is. So taking a look at your own personal network, your LinkedIn contacts, and seeing who should be the people that could be the most helpful both ways, and kind of prioritizing those contacts first, because you're not going to cast a huge wide net, because you won't be able to follow up with everyone. And I think that's one of the mistakes that people make, is they cast this huge wide net because somebody out there is going to have a contact for me, somebody's going to be helpful. But if you can't be intentional with following up with people, it can really undermine any progress that you've made in that relationship. And by making about a thing, because you want to be interested in the person. If you feel like, I need to network with Sue over there because I know she could be helpful, but there's zero pure intent to it. Me personally, I would think twice about trying to establish that connection until I feel that there's something that I can give and get in return, because no one wants to feel like they're being used.
Yeah, that's so important. I appreciate that. And you mentioned a key phrase there that I want to follow up with, which is following up, because
Yeah.
I in the past haven't always been the best person at doing a very good job of that. And so I got a couple things I want to ask you about. So first thing I want to ask is, how soon is too soon for a follow up? Actually, there's three questions, so I'm going to start because I often have the bad habit of putting two questions together, so I'm just going to start with that one. So how soon is too soon for follow up?
It
Or is
depends,
that?
because if you're in a conversation with someone and they were like we were just talking about that book,
Right.
um, and oh my gosh, that's a great book. You can follow up the next day. Great to have that conversation. Hey, I forgot the name of that book. Could you share that with me? And you want to follow up quickly because the conversation's fresh. But if you're in a conversation, maybe it's a business conversation, and you know that they are super, super busy, maybe you want to wait a couple of days. And so you have to read the room. You have to be able to read the room, but at the same time, you don't want to go too long. But here's a tactic that I've taken before. So I just recently did um, a publicity event where I got to meet 80 different people from the media. It was fantastic. But of those 80 people, 60 of them said, "Oh my gosh, follow up with me. I'd love to have a conversation." I'm like, that's a lot of people. So I knew that. And then I knew that if I tried to do a very generic response, it's not authentic, it's not me. So I wanted to take my time and be intentional with contacting each person, do a little bit more research, make sure it's a right fit. So what I did was, then I recorded just a really quick little, "Hey, remember me?" Because people are visual. So I know that. So I took the folks that were the hottest. I'd looked at priority. Let's go priority wise. And then I knew for the people that it would be a month, maybe 2 months till I got back with them. I recorded something visually so I could take my time, write an intentional email to them, plus include a link to a 30-second, "Hey, remember me? I met you back in March. We talked about da da da." And I've gotten quite a bit of good response from that, because people appreciated the fact that I made it easy for them to remember who I was, that they didn't have to go back through their memory bank and think, who was that person? She talked about career reinvention. She talked about Connectworking. She talked about wisdom and warnings. Who was that? And they couldn't remember my name. So I always think, whatever I can do to make it easier on the other person, like help them to help you back. It didn't take more than 2 minutes to create that little video, and I embed it in all my follow-ups now.
Well, and I think you just answered my next question, which was going to be what makes a follow-up memorable? And I think that is a really good way. But do you have any other ideas on that front? Because I love the video idea. I'm going to steal that one.
Yeah, absolutely. By all means, because we have to learn from each other, right?
Yeah.
So make it personal. It could be just, here's what I love to do with you're in a business networking. And so maybe you crack out your phone, you pull up LinkedIn, your LinkedIn app. There's a quick way to get to your QR code. You're having a conversation. You know what? This was such a great conversation. I would love to continue this. Can we connect on LinkedIn? And you quick, easy scan my QR code. But then as soon as they walk away, send yourself a quick text message. Grace Rand, red shirt, here, the name of her business. It could be something about her that you relate in the conversation, but something about the person. You text it to yourself. And then when you do your follow-up, reference something personal about them. It was great to meet you at this event. We talked about so-and-so. How did that project go? You were getting ready to, you had a big sales presentation. How'd your sales presentation go? Would love to hear about it. And again, you're engaging them on a more of a personal, intentional level.
I love that. All right. Third question I'm going to ask you now, because
Sure.
especially when you mentioned the 60 people. So what kind of system do you have or do you recommend for keeping track of people and their unique details other than, texting, which is good, but then I would presume you're going to have to put that into some other type of document or something to be able to keep track of that. So without, so what kind of system that you can make, but it's not too mechanical or things like that.
Excel is my friend.
Okay.
So I kind of I just keep a very basic spreadsheet. I know some other people use like a CRM, they use some other type of apps or whatnot, but I just keep it very, very simple. I have a spreadsheet of who they are, what their status is, and it could be that I've reached out and I'm waiting. It could be that I'm booked for something, I've completed, or not applicable. They're just people that, it's just not going to go anywhere. And then I do keep some basic details in that spreadsheet. And I do have when was the last time we contacted, and I do have a field for next contact. So I can very easily go in and do some filters or some sorting and say, okay, who are the ones that I've reached out and I'm waiting on? Who are the people that, what are my next touch points? So it may be that, I sent my email out on a certain date and I just put in the field of next contact. I just put the date 2 weeks later, so then I can just kind of refilter on that field and just know who's coming up. Who do I have to touch base with this week?
One other thing I want to ask you about, because that just occurred to me too, and because I know I've been in other trainings and things, and I think people have different opinions about this. What is your let's say that you meet someone. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you meet someone, you have a great conversation, and you think that, I have something that this person can use, and you really do think that they could be a good prospect for your business. What do you feel is like a good way? So let's say you follow up, maybe, email. I guess what I want to get at is email maybe versus old school picking up the phone. What's your thoughts on those?
If you have their phone number, I think that's a really great pros and cons of that. If you've got their phone number, it's great to reach out and try and contact them. However, lots of people these days see a number they don't recognize and they send it right to voicemail. So when I'm reaching out to someone and I can tell your call has just been forwarded to voicemail, I know they just ditched the call, which is totally fine. We all do it because spam is so prevalent. But what I'll do is I'll leave a voicemail, and at the end I'll say, hey, I'm going to send you a text message so you know this wasn't spam. So then I will finish my voicemail, and then I will send them a text message and say, hey, this is Jen. I just left you a voicemail. Just wanted to let you know that call was not spam. So I also love sending something in the mail. If you have their address and there's something to send, the fact that I've written a couple books lately since I was unexpectedly departed from my company. I wrote a couple books, and I have had some people from that media event that I was at say, "Oh, just send me a PDF of the book, or send me the book. I'd love to see it." Most people will just send the PDF of the book because it's so quick and easy. But how much more impactful is it if you take the time, handwritten note, put the book in the envelope and shoot it to them? Because how nice is it to get mail these days that's not a bill and it's not like the circular for the grocery store?
I tell you, I second that. And as someone who was on a media event and have booked several people to be on the podcast, that I had two people who actually did send me from this latest round who sent me their books, and it was so lovely to actually. I'm still old school, and I mean, I do love the Kindle. It is convenient, and sometimes, if I'm waiting in line or I'm waiting at a doctor's appointment, I can read my phone. But if I'm home, I like a
Mhm.
physical book, and I
Yeah.
really love to be able to read that. And so
Mhm.
it was, yeah, that's a really great idea. I think that's so amazing.
Let's get back to old school. I like old school.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason these things worked, and it doesn't, even though
Mhm.
we're in the 21st century now, I think it sets you apart actually when you do
It
things
does.
like that, because it is something that not everybody does. So, but I do like the idea of texting afterwards. You make that phone call, so I think
Right.
that's smart. And you could probably also. I know I have sometimes in the past would even do like I'll email and say I'm also going to call you and leave you a voicemail or something, or
Mhm.
vice versa. So that way you are kind of reaching them in two different ways. Because yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't answer phone calls that I don't know either because it's like if they really want to talk to me, they're going to leave me a voice message.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so that's the deal.
Oh.
You talked about earlier that you have like people who have said to you, oh, I hate networking, or maybe they just feel that they're really bad at networking. So, what do you think though? Maybe is their real challenge? What do you think?
Insecurity. Insecure, and I think COVID also did a number on a lot of people, especially the folks that were the younger ones who were in college, that they came out of college and they went right into the workforce and it was all virtual. And they're the years where it's so important to get out there and meet people and talk to people and just learn how to have conversation again. So I think COVID really did. There's a lot of good that came out of it, a lot of bad that came out of it, and I think that having organic conversations is something that suffered.
I agree. I agree. And I will say this and maybe get your take on it too. And again, see if there's any unique suggestions you have. I have a lovely daughter who built her business without going to one networking meeting. And she is a web designer and she did, online marketing. She did, she was active on social media for a while. Now I think, probably is just getting referrals, so she doesn't even have to do a whole lot. So if someone out there, and I think it probably part of it is that she's just more comfortable behind a computer screen, and I think there are
Hmm.
still lots of people out there, no matter what their age. Frankly, you don't have to be necessarily 20 something or 30
Hmm.
something. So if someone wants to, let's say though that they do want to be able to meet people, they do want to be able to connect. What what specific tips do you have for someone who just wants to be able to network online?
Online, I think that's getting involved with groups or associations, or um, being intentional about what is the topic and adding value to that topic. So it really is just what we talked about earlier. It's the give. It is showing that you are there's you can see in people's LinkedIn posts or in their social media if they are someone of value, or not value, but of substance. If what they are putting out is meaty and helpful, then people are going to gravitate towards those folks more than someone who's just very surface level. So again, intention and giving something that is of value to the group, and making offers. If it is a business, something she's got this niche that she's working on, in this association or in this group or whatever she's in, it can be like, I would love to. I'm open to mentoring, or I'm open to helping someone who's just trying to break into this environment, because what do they say? The rising tide floats all boats.
Right.
So yeah, to be helpful to the ones that are coming up behind.
I like that. That's very good. How has your approach to connection evolved as your own business has grown?
I think embracing who I am, because I can be a little quirky, I can be a little loud, I can be a little funny, I can be off the cuff, I can say things and put my foot in the mouth. And I think in the beginning, I thought I had to be somebody a little bit more polished, a little bit more, and having come off, I rose up through the ranks, no college education. So when I was unexpectedly departed from my last company, there was a lot of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't have this piece of paper that everyone else has. And I kind of had to come to terms with the knowledge that I have from all these years of working. That was my education. So I had to just kind of turn the cube and think about something a little differently. And just getting comfortable with, I don't have to be like everybody else. I don't have to be polished. I don't have to have the everyone that has the PhDs and the MBAs and all this education. Great. Love it for you. Super smart. There's a place for those people, but there's also a place for the people that have learned through experience and have figured it out on their own. And I always say, especially related to wisdom and warnings, I'm like, some of the smartest people I've ever met have never been to college. They've never stepped foot in a boardroom. It's common sense. It's learning on the street. It's getting scrappy, being in the trenches, learning from other people, and then sharing the lessons that they've learned. So I think it's just getting comfortable with, you don't have to be like everybody else. You just do your thing, and people will gravitate towards you for who you are.
Absolutely. That is what I teach as well. I have something called the LOVE method, which is and LOVE is an acronym, and V is value your uniqueness,
Love it.
And I like to say, don't be afraid to let your freak flag fly, and so I'm glad that you're doing that you came to that realization. Because, yeah, especially, if you are trying to be someone that you're not, then when you do maybe then finally connect with someone, and then you start letting your guard down and you start acting like yourself, then one of two things is going to happen.
Disconnect.
Yeah, they're going to be either like, I don't know you, and it's like, and now you've like totally turned me off, or like, okay, well, all right, I guess we can still, connect, but it's like,
you can
why?
meet all over again.
Yeah.
You've undermined the authenticity. You've undermined
Absolutely.
all of that human connection that you've been working at.
Right.
And you can undermine it so quickly if you try to be somebody that you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you mentioned, and when before we got started with the podcast, I was like, okay, that name of your business, in which I think I kind of have an idea why you called it that way, but I would love to, since it says wisdom and warning, so I can see the wisdom that are going to come up, but maybe what are the warnings? So what prompted you to call it that?
So wisdom and warnings is my passion project. For 12, 14 years, I love talking to people and learning their stories, learning the lessons that they've learned the hard way, and sharing. So over these years, I'm constantly, every day, I'm learning things about people, these wisdom nuggets. It's what should you do? And what should you not do? It's like, I want to learn from the things that someone did and was successful, but I also want to learn from their mistakes so I don't make them. So that's kind of where the wisdom and warnings comes in. And, over the 12, 14 years, I've my library of wisdom is, I think it's over close to or over 8,000 nuggets. And what I've done is, that part of my passion project is I have them into life milestone categories, and that's the book series that I started when I got let go from my last job. Is there's so much wisdom in, and I think the book that I just launched, Tips from the Quad and Let Them Fly, are all about. Tips from the Quad is the wisdom for the new college student. All the mistakes we made with my son because I never went to college. I didn't know that tuition bills were mailed to the child, not me. So all these little things that I had no idea, and so they are now in the book Tips from the Quad. And that's 365 nuggets of wisdom for the new college student. So you don't have to kind of deluge all this information to your kid before they leave. And the other book, the companion, Let Them Fly, is all the wisdom from the parents of the college students. So it's just all about learning from others and then sharing that so other people can maybe avoid some mistakes.
Very good. That's awesome.
Huh?
All right, we're going to change gears just slightly as we're
Sure.
nearing the end of our time here, because I love asking my guests this when we have the time, we have an opportunity. So, what are you curious about right now?
Oh, what am I curious about? I am curious about the next right step. It's when you make a big pivot in your life, like I've made over the past 2 years. I feel like the world's my oyster, and there's so many things that I'm interested in, but I know that I need to make the next right step. So I'm just curious about so much in this realm of authorship and encouragement and coaching and engaging with other people. I'm just so curious about where's life taking me in the next couple of years, and it's through conversations with people like yourself, and just from all different areas, just learning about, and then whatever the thing is, it's going to hit me. It'll hit me and it'll happen. But I'm just really curious about what's next.
I love that, and it's funny. I was actually on a training. I'm in a group where we're helping us to make sure that we are maximizing our LinkedIn presence, and she was talking about actually using AI to help you figure out your clear next right steps. So
I've got an exercise for you.
so I love that. That
Yeah.
is so good.
I do use. I was going to say I do use AI quite a bit in my career transition. Real quick, I have people do what I call the 3 buckets exercise. Get super clear on what do you love doing, what are you super good at, what are your values and priorities, and then you can go into like a chat GPT, and if it is for job search, give it the persona. You're a career strategist with 20 years experience. Give me 10 jobs or careers that leverage the following.
Right.
And it is just amazing what comes up, because nowadays I believe it's about what fits me, as opposed to me trying to shoehorn myself into something. And that it's just the advent of AI and how prevalent it is. It just kind of helps get outside of your own head and gives you ideas that you would have never thought of.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love about it best is that idea generation. You know, there's so many people who are so worried about it, replacing humans, but I think we can still befriend it and have it be a tool for us to use as opposed to, totally replacing. So
Absolutely.
that's so cool. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you about or that I should have, or any other last point you'd like to make?
Last point. I would just love to say, be open to the possibilities. When life throws you a curveball, you don't know what 3 years down the road is going to look like. Just be open to declaring, like, what are you interested in? What lights you on fire? And then be open to how it presents itself to you. I would have never expected that I'd be in this position 2 years ago. I was like, you're crazy. But I think that unexpected departure was probably long overdue. The universe will kick you in the butt and send you in the direction that you need to go. And then you just have to be open to identifying it and catching it. Just go along for the ride, friends.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Been there, done that. Yep, I can relate. All right. If someone who's been enjoying this conversation today would like to learn more about you, where can people go?
You can just hit up my website. It's jen-fort.com or Wisdom and Warnings, Instagram, Facebook, website, Wisdom and Warnings.
Okay, very good. And that's Jen with one N. Just
Jen with one N.
Yeah.
Because we only need one of me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I really, I enjoyed our conversation and learned a lot from you. And yeah, I want to remember remember that video tip, folks. Yes. So, to be memorable and to follow up and have people remember you, I think is so important. So very
awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a great conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. And I do want to thank all of you for listening and for watching today. I hope you did get as much value as I did. And if you're not subscribed to the podcast yet, I hope you will on your favorite podcast platform. Or you can also, if you've been watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Gloria Grace Rand. And I think that's going to do it. So until next time, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and connect and engage authentically.